Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. I can't think of a better way to pass the time of day.
RodMob. This is The Splash, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sarah.
And this week we're coming at you remotely via the power of Skype. It's Friday, October 19th, and this is episode 31 of The Splash, your weekly Northern California fishing podcast. On today's show, we'll check in with the Soul Man out of Fisherman's Wharf. Coastal rock fishing is still going strong. And salmon fishing may be winding down, but the trout action is hot on the Sacramento River. Plus, we've got all the rest of your best bets for Northern California. First, let's see what's happening in the news.
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
Well, let me tell you, we've got binders of fishing news.
Binders?
Well, a couple stories anyway. First off, the DFG announced new depth restrictions for rock fishing in Southern California last week in order to reduce interactions with cow cod. Cow cod are one of the largest rockfish. They can reach up to 37 inches in length and weigh up to 29 pounds, and the species was declared overfished in 1999. Possession is prohibited, but incidental catches do happen. And the DFG determined the incidental take is projected to exceed the federal limit for 2012, so they're limiting recreational groundfish fishing depths to 300 feet in the Southern Groundfish Management Area starting November 1st. The hope is that by limiting bottom fishing activity for all target species to shallower depths, the incidental take of cow cod will be reduced too. And a Washington man was fishing for salmon in the Deschutes River recently, but instead of a rod and reel, he decided to take a shortcut and fish with a .22 caliber rifle. Well, the only thing he hit was a rock, and a bullet ricocheted off and struck him in the head. He's likely going to lose the sight in one eye, but he's lucky he wasn't killed. The man's girlfriend called 911, and she told authorities he goes out and shoots salmon pretty frequently. Once he's recovered, the man will be facing charges from the local sheriff and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Shooting a fish with a gun isn't just dangerous, it's illegal.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do?
And an Oakland man who was recently arrested by DFG wardens for taking more than the bag limit of red abalone from the Mendocino coastline just got his sentencing this week. 3 years probation and a fine of $15,000. On top of that, his California fishing license was permanently revoked. This was just one in a series of heavy fines and penalties as the DFG and the courts have been cracking down on abalone poachers in Mendocino County. The hope is that fines of up to $30,000, formal probation for up to 5 years, and losing the ability to get a fishing license for the rest of their life will put these guys permanently out of business.
Stay on top of the latest fishing action. Subscribe to RodMob Podcasts on iTunes. It's free, and you'll always get the latest episodes.
Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here's the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Let's start with the saltwater. On the North Coast, this week ocean conditions were still tough out of Eureka, so there was very little action. The DFG is planning to test crab for meat recovery from Crescent City to Pillar Point this week. The great rock fishing and lingcod fishing continues in Bodega Bay. Some salmon and white sea bass are still being caught near Bird Rock to the top end of 10 Mile Beach, and when the weather cooperates, boats are nailing the albacore 35 miles southwest of the harbor.
Outside the gate, salmon fishing was great earlier this week along the Marin Coast. Monday, the new Easy Rider had 22 salmon to 23 pounds for 14 anglers. The new Salmon Queen had 9 salmon to 21 pounds for 14 anglers yesterday. Rock fishing has been great at the Farallon Islands and along the Marin Coast. And I've got Captain Don Franklin, the Soul Man, here with a report. So, how's it been going?
Last week was very good. It slowed down a little bit with the big tides, but we're in our typical fall pattern where the fishing will slow down a bit. When we get big tides, when a new school arrives, when the tides slow down, the fish will feed, and they'll fatten up before they take their journey into the bay and up to the rivers. Our rock cod fishing has been outstanding. Good quality, lots of big blacks and blues, and there's been a little talk of some striped bass up in San Pablo Bay now.
Cool. Where have you been fishing?
I've been on the coast. We've been salmon mooching. One day we had 5 limits. We got that in an hour and a half of frenetic fishing.
Great.
We've also been fishing rock cod, Stinson Beach, the towers, all of those areas.
Cool. I've been hearing some rough weather may be coming in. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, we got a little bit of a weather change. Definitely, we got some southeast forming. I don't think it's a big storm that's going to come, but we got some rain coming, so people need to be a little careful. It's not quite as bad because our tides are starting to slow down. Then there will be some windows to fish. And I think if people don't have the boats for it, don't overlook California City. I've seen some incredible marks, Yellow Bluff, all the way through Raccoon Strait. And you can definitely get your fishing fix for salmon inside the bay. And there's still a couple of halibut hanging around in Angel Island, too.
Well, cool. How can our listeners get a hold of you to book a trip?
Soul phone is on 24/7, 510-703-4148, or on the web, www.soulmanfishing.com. And that's soul spelled like the fish. I don't have a lick of rhythm in my feet.
Right on, Don. Thanks again. Have a good weekend.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye. Plenty of rockfish are still being caught in Half Moon Bay, but this weekend is expected to be windy, so boats may head out Saturday, but some are already canceling Sunday trips. Boats making the trip north of the Gumdrop are filling up with albacore, and crab season is just around the corner starting November 3rd, so now's the time to start booking those crab and rockfish combos.
In Santa Cruz, there continues to be good scores for sea bass from Wilder Beach to Natural Bridges in about 100 feet of water. Rock fishing is great, and the lingcod are still biting. Bayside Marine reports some albacore were caught yesterday out near the Dog Bone, and some halibut are being caught off 4 Mile in 80 to 100 feet of water. A small craft advisory is in effect for Santa Cruz this weekend, too. Hot rock fishing and lingcod action continues in Monterey. Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching is killing it this week, bringing in limits of rock cod and lingcod on nearly every trip. Chris's is running a Humboldt squid trip this Sunday, and they're taking reservations now for rock cod and crab combo trips in November. Give them a call to book your trip. It's 831-375-5951. In the San Francisco Bay, good striper action continues. Last Sunday, 17 anglers aboard the Happy Hooker out of Berkeley nailed limits of stripers and a few halibut. Good striper reports are coming in throughout the bay and from the Petaluma and Napa rivers. And like the Soul Man mentioned, folks are finding halibut near Angel Island and Red Rock. There's good leopard shark fishing at the Pump House and near the Mare Island Rockwall. The South Bay is also seeing continued shark and ray bites. And anglers trolling bait are having salmon success when the tides are right at California City. The word is to try a couple hours before and after the change at high tide.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/TheRodMob.
In the Delta, last weekend was the Rio Vista Bass Derby. Be sure to check out our show from earlier this week, episode 30, for a full recap. Montezuma Slough and Chain Island were some of the hot spots for stripers. Decker Island and 3 Mile Slough have also been good. Barry Cannavaro from Fishhooker's Sport Fishing reports the fall striper run is on. He planned to hit Montezuma Slough with shad for the rest of the week. Barry says it's good fishing for 8 to 14 pounders, and if you're fishing with bait, you won't get skunked. Sturgeon entries came in from the Pittsburgh area. We're seeing sturgeon action happening at Montezuma and in the light number 1 area. Salmon reports are scattered about the Delta. Kings are being found in Walnut Grove, the mouth of the old Sacramento River at Vieras, and in Benicia at First Street and at the State Park. Fly anglers targeting stripers are doing well in the San Joaquin River and at Frank's Track. RodMobber Michael Hutchings reports, South Delta is on fire for largemouth and small stripers. Top of the tide and bottom of the tide has been producing well with floating jerkbaits. Lots of fish to 3 pounds with an occasional big one in the mix.
Now let's look at the lakes. At Lake Shasta, there are plenty of bass, and the rainbows and brown trout are starting to come up and chase the shad into shallower water. Shasta247.com reports shad are near the surface in open water, and bass are just underneath. You'll want to work your crankbaits, plastics, and spinnerbaits from up near the surface to 40 feet down along the rocky outcroppings and points. Everybody is catching limits of bass with 2.5 pounders, about the max being brought out. Rainbows and browns are down about 40 to 60 feet in the main body of the lake, but come up into the top 20 feet in the early morning. Gary Morales at Shasta Tackle says the best lures have been crip lures, glow shad, and any of the UV patterns. Trout fishing is also good at Dry Creek west of Shasta Dam, around the buoys near Bridge Bay, under the I-5 bridge, and the McLeod River Channel. King salmon are down around 85 to 100 feet. Try apexes or rolled anchovies or shad. Lewiston Lake is still on the NorCal Fishing News Best Bites list this week. It's stuffed with trout and they're biting on night crawlers. Fishing's been good at Lake Almanor, especially at the Hamilton Branch and Big Springs areas. Bait fish are moving west along the Prattville shoreline and returning to the shallower west side. And the Tournament of Champions is on at Clear Lake, which is expected to draw at least 170 boats this weekend. Terry Knight of the Record Bee reports bass are still widely scattered, so you'll need to be constantly on the move to locate active fish. The top lure is still the LV500, followed by the trash fish swim bait. Catfish action is still good.
The bass are biting at Lake Oroville in the West Branch. The topwater action is still good in the morning. Western Outdoor News reports the bigger fish are hitting jugs, drop shot worms, and darthead rigged Cincos in the slot. At Folsom Lake, not many folks are fishing for landlocked king salmon, but the bite is good. Western Outdoor News says try trolling speedy shiners from 60 to 65 feet deep in front of the dam, over the river channel, and by the new outlet construction zone. Bass fishing is still kind of tough, but if you're giving it a go, try drop shot robo-worms, jug, and deep diving crankbaits. Out at Collins Lake, shore anglers fishing near the dam are getting limits of trout on power bait. The lake is looking forward to a fall plant of 1,000 pounds. They say half the plant will be trophy-sized fish. A recent monster catch was made by David Callison, who landed a 16-pound catfish on a worm while targeting bass near the dam, and his friend Kevin hooked a 5-pound, 4-ounce bass on live crawdads. RodMob Leon Stepp fished Collins Lake this week and caught some nice rainbows.
In the East Bay area, at San Pablo Reservoir, trout are being caught near the main recreation area in Sandy Point. They're biting on power bait and chartreuse and spring green, and trollers are having luck with broken back fire tigers. Crappie and bluegill fishing's been great near the boat launch area using jigs and redworms, and catfish are biting on anchovies and chicken livers. This week, Ansana of Berkeley caught a huge 19-pound cat using shrimp at Fantasy Island. If you're thinking of heading out to San Pablo, you'll want to get out there soon. Their season ends on October 31st. And the marina opened Monday at Los Vaqueros Reservoir, and the lake is celebrating with multiple plants of trout. Hopefully the fishing will be great since there's been so little pressure on the lake. And NorCal Fishing News reports that trout bite is picking up at Lake Del Valle. Trout are close to shore near the marina and near the dam. The smallmouth and black bass bite is very good off shallow points. Try using topwater plugs. Most fish are 1 to 2 pounds, with some smallmouth in the 3-pound class. The catfish bite is good. Pete DePuglia of Newark caught a 20-pound catfish last week. Lake Chabot continues to get trout plants and the bite is improving. The best spots right now are near the dam and Coots Landing. The Coyote Bait and Tackle Striper Derby is on at San Luis Reservoir, and the fishing has been improving. The derby entry fee is $10, and the longest bass wins a $150 Daiwa rod and reel combo. Coyote Bait and Tackle reports boaters with live bait or throwing a jerk bait are catching stripers from 18 to 25 inches. Shore anglers are doing the best with pileworms, bloodworms, shad, and anchovies.
Keep us posted. Share your catch, tips, gear reviews, and more on our Facebook page. Facebook.com/RodMob.
And in the Motherlode area, Melanie Lewis at Glory Hole Sports reports trout anglers trolling are catching a few limits in the main lake and in the mouths of the major creek arms. They've had reports of fish being caught from 30 to 90 feet of water. On cooler nights, the fish are moving towards the surface. On hotter days, they go deep for the comfort of cool water. Night fishing under a submersible light is still producing some quality limits. Try fishing the backs of coves and creek channels. Bank fishing has been slow, but should pick up as the water temperatures cool down. River and stream season ends November 15th. The big fish of the week was caught by Fred Salisbury. Fred caught a couple of nice rainbows while trolling a natural shad needlefish. His biggest fish was 3 pounds, 5 ounces. Spotted bass are ambushing balls of shad on the main lake points, in the main lake pockets, and on submerged island tops. Largemouth bass are in the shallow waters in the morning and move to 25 to 45 feet later in the day. And anglers targeting crappie at night using submersible lights in the back coves are catching some nice ones. The fish are in 15 to 30 feet of water near standing timber and brush. Live minnows are working well. The first plants of the season started on Monday at Lake Amador. They're planting 1,000 pounds daily from now through April. Fish are mainly 2-pound rainbows, and larger fish to 12 pounds will be coming soon. At Pardee, trolling 25 to 40 feet deep in the main body of the lake and the mouth of the river has been productive for trout. Night crawlers with dodgers, excels, and needlefish are working best.
Lake Comanche's been kind of quiet, but the catfish bite is still good, and trollers are finding some trout near the dam. Things should pick up for the November 3rd Trout Derby with hundreds of tagged fish worth $500 and more. The Sacramento Bee reported that Lake Don Pedro guide Monty Smith has clients catching trout, salmon, and black bass. Monty's been working middle bay and open water, trolling from 50 to 65 feet deep. The bass are down in the column feasting on shad, along with the trout and king salmon. Guide Danny Lane reports XL lures and the cop car pattern are producing well for trout at Jenkins Hill, Big Oak Island, and into Middle Bay. Rainbows are 16 to 20 inches. The Modesto Bees report on McClure Reservoir has Jason Mello of A1 Bait saying king salmon and spotted bass are both feeding on the shad schools near the dam at around 50 feet. He suggests using shad-patterned rapalas for both salmon and bass. Manny Basie of the Bait Barn says the best bass action is still on the bottom, and he recommends Senko's color patterns 201, 305, and 33 at around 30 feet, in addition to drop shotting with Pro Worm's Purple Shad Color 124 and Reaction Innovations Bad Shad Green Flirt.
In the Sierras, on Lake Tahoe, Mackinac fishing is still good. Western Outdoor News reports fish are in spawning mode, so they're pretty aggressive protecting their nest. Mike Nielsen at Tahoe Topliners had quick limits jigging for max from 3 to 6 pounds at South Shore and Meeks Bay. At Donner Lake, Mountain Hardware reports bright silvery decent-sized kokanee are still being caught, and there's at least a month of good kokanee fishing left. Trout fishing's excellent and there's no crowds. Boaters at Pyramid Lake have been killing it. Joe Mendez at Eagle Eye Charters reports boiling hot action trolling along the east side of the lake. His last 2 trips produced 55 and 65 fish, and fly anglers in float tubes and pontoon boats are having great success. There was a report of a 20-pound cutthroat caught last weekend.
We want to hear from you. Got a fishing report, a tip, a review, a comment on the show? Drop us a message on the RodMob hotline. Then listen for it on an upcoming episode. 662-RODMOB5.
NorCal Fishing News reports that trout at June Lake are starting to move close to the surface. Trollers are going down 4 colors to find the trout. The best spot continues to be at the northeast end of the lake. The key to bait angling is using garlic scents. And the Virginias are still fishing well, reports Ken's Sporting Goods. Fly anglers are casting seal buggers, woolly buggers, soft hackles, stillwater nymphs, zug bugs, and princes. Bait anglers are having success with power bait, power eggs, and night crawlers. On the rivers, Kenny Priest reports some decent tidal exchanges should be bringing in fresh salmon from the ocean into North Coast rivers like the Klamath, Smith, Eel, and Mad rivers. The Klamath and estuaries of the Eel, Smith, and Mad rivers are open to fishing. Kenny says salmon have been moving into the Eel River estuary, and trolling spinners and castmasters is a good bet. The lower Klamath is fishing pretty well, better than last week, although hooking up your 4-fish limit may be tough. Mike Koopman's guide service has been averaging about 7 to 10 hookups per trip, with fish averaging a solid 18 pounds. The Fly Shop in Redding recommends Happy Camp to Iron Gate Dam for salmon and fishing near Blue Creek for steelhead. There's not a lot of fishing pressure on the Middle Klamath River and a good number of fish. Bryce Ducey of Bryce Ducey's Guide Service reported to Fishing the North Coast that they've been seeing a good number of fresh jacks and some adults and a few steelhead. Side drifting or back-bouncing bait is working best for them. Lots of fish in the Upper Trinity River, too, with fresh salmon moving in each day. Word is most of the fish are hanging around the Junction City area. It's still flooded with hatchery salmon smolts, which make it hard to get the big ones, but the steelhead are starting to show up, and the fishing should only get better. The river's really low, so folks are hoping for the rain that's forecast to move in on Monday or Tuesday. In fact, all North Coast rivers that are subjected to low-flow fishing closures are closed. That includes the Eel, Mad, Smith, Van Duzen, and Redwood Creek. Rivers can be opened at any time, though, and the DFG notifies the public no later than 1 p.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. To check on the status of closures, call the Low Flow Closure Hotline at 707-822-3164. And the Fly Shop in Redding reports fly fishing on the Pitt and McLeod rivers has been good. The October caddis hatches are coming off big time near sunset. They say daytime conditions are excellent and as beautiful as one can ask for in October.
There's been good trout fishing on the Sacramento River from Redding to Anderson and in the Dunsmuir area. Around Red Bluff, we hear limits or near limits of salmon are still common. On the lower Sac, the fly shop says that river conditions are excellent. They say the fishing continues to amaze, lots of hookups and happy anglers. The sound of screaming reels and hoots is as common as the spawning king salmon, and the fly shop also reports that trout are fat and active. Salmon fishing has slowed a bit in the Sacramento area, but as we reported on Tuesday, the fish are bright and putting up a good fight. Garcia Bend, Freeport, and above Discovery Park are still your best bets in a boat. If you're fishing from the bank, Miller Park, the Minnow Hole, and Discovery Park are the favorite spots. Alan Fong of the Fisherman's Warehouse in Sacramento went fishing with Big Al at Big Al's Guide Service this week. They hooked 8 salmon, landing 6, trolling double-bladed silvertrons on the Sacramento River out of Garcia Bend. And if you fish the Sac and are looking for some tips on curing roe, check out Scott Feist's feature in the latest Fish Sniffer. He's got a great article on how he perfectly fine-tunes eggs for the big water and deep holes of the Sacramento River.
Salmon season ended Monday on the Feather River. Last Saturday, guide Scott Feist put his clients on the fish, hooking 16 kings and landing 7 before noon. With the salmon closer, things should quiet down and start some promising steelhead fishing. We've already heard some reports of guides hooking bright steelies to 22 inches. The Yuba River is closed above the Highway 20 bridge, but the lower section of the river is in excellent shape, and the fishing is great for trout in both numbers and size.
Matt Heron Fly Fishing reports that Truckee River is in full swing and the fishing is on fire. He's been taking fish on everything from October caddis to BWOs, on top to streamers, and of course indicator fishing. Matt says water temps are cooling daily, and this is the fall bite we've all been waiting for. Fishing has been really good downstream from the Truckee all the way through the canyon. Keep an eye out for cloudy days. The Beta's hatch could go off for some of the best dry fly fishing of the year. For brown, spawning is in the air, and please be careful wading through the reds and leave spawning fish to do their thing. And in the eastern Sierras, we're hearing reports that flows are up on the Owens River. There's a winter storm watch starting Monday, so expect lots of wind. Tom at Sierra Drifters Guide Service says drifting has been fun and recommends small mayfly patterns and crystal caddis until it gets cold around the middle of next week.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the week.
This week's podcast artwork comes from Leon Stepp. Leon sent us a couple of reports this week, including a shot of some rainbow trout he caught fishing at Collins Lake. Leon says, it was a great day at the office. Thanks, Leon, for posting this week's
Catch of the week.
And I just have to say, I especially like Leon's t-shirt in the picture.
Yep, that's the same shirt I wear to work too, Leon.
Yep, gotta be repping the RodMob.
All right, now it's time for our poll question.
Well, last week's poll was all about the salmon season. We've been seeing a lot of great catches from the RodMob community this season, but it's starting to wind down. So we wanted to know overall how the 2012 salmon season was for you. And turns out about 60% of you have had a pretty good season. 7% said it was your best ever. 10% said pretty wide open, but I've had better. And 41% said good, but not great. 24% said it's been pretty lousy. They couldn't get the skunk off. And 17% haven't made it out yet. If you're one of those that haven't made it out yet, you've still got a little time, especially you northern RodMobbers. We're hearing the Klamath Run will continue through the second week of November.
Yeah, I was in the haven't made it out yet group, unfortunately. But I'm already making plans for the opener for next year.
Cool.
So what's this week's question?
Well, fishing is obviously a very popular activity, and there's tons of things to keep up on, like gear, regulations, fishing reports, weather reports, you name it. And we're curious, how many different fishing websites do you visit in a week? Do you keep it simple? Maybe you have a few sites that you use? Maybe you're more of a Googler, you just search for what you need. Or are you a total web junkie? You have a ton of fishing bookmarks and you can never get enough. Let us know. Head on over to rodmob.com to cast your vote.
And remember, we still have the Turkey Day giveaway going on. Who doesn't want some free stuff? We've teamed up with Military Hunting and Fishing and other partners to celebrate Thanksgiving with a blowout giveaway. 4 prize packages worth over $600.
There are a lot of cool prizes, including some Bass Pro Shops, gift cards, RodMob decals, and lots of other swag and gear for fishing and hunting.
The giveaway runs from now to Thursday, November 22nd, and we'll announce the winners on Thanksgiving Day. To enter and see the prizes, go to rodmob.com and click the Turkey Day giveaway, or head over to our Facebook page and click the giveaway tab.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
October 25th at the Fisherman's Warehouse in Manteca, Bass Pro Ish Monroe is giving a seminar on crankbait techniques at 6 p.m. On October 26th through 28th at Convict Lake, check out the Morrison's Bonus Derby Weekend, part of Ambush at the Lake. 12 tagged Alpers trout will be stocked for the Bonus Derby Weekend. Recreational crab season opens on November 3rd. Also on November 3rd, it's Lake Comanche's 3rd annual Trout Derby. $4,000 in cash and prizes, with prizes awarded to 20th place. And there will be 100 tagged fish valued at $500 or more each. Finally, November 9th through 17th is the Pogo Striped Bass Derby at the VFW Hall in Antioch. To purchase tickets, contact Steve Martinez at 925-783-8401. For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for another great week of reports and pictures. Don't forget, we'll send you a free RodMob decal just for sharing your latest catch or report with us. Post to our Facebook page or shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to us in iTunes. It's free, and new episodes get automatically downloaded to your iPod or iPhone, so you don't have to check to see when there's a new update.
Also, show your support for the show by giving us a good review on iTunes. It really helps us out.
And we'd love to hear your feedback. If you have suggestions, topics you'd like us to cover, or people you think we should invite on the show, just shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com.
Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Tight lines, and until next time, keep us posted.
RodMob.
The little rod dogs should leave the room.